Welcome back, everybody. This is actually part two. So let's go ahead here and put part two. Okay, part two. And this is part two to insert A. So here I'm just going to now just actually provide some examples and like go through this and show you how I would think about it. Again, we're talking arguments. And here, these are four options that we could use if, in fact, right here, if it is a non-argument. But if it is an argument, right, if it is an argument, then the idea really is what I'm mostly interested in and what I'm going to test you on is I want you to try to definitely identify the conclusion, okay? And the exam, I'm not going to ask you, okay, to do this right here because this right here, as we know, is called standard form. And I mentioned that standard form is cool, but it's not all that helpful, right? And so let me kind of put that in there. There we go, standard form. So let's just go ahead and do. The first thing I do when I read any passage is I number them. So what I know is that there are three statements. I also see the word but, and I also see the word must. So when I look at those, and let's go ahead and make this a little clearer right here so we can see that. And let's make this as number 3. Okay. And so I know it definitely can be an argument. If it were one statement, remember, it can't be an argument. So that's them. When I look at must, I think to myself, whenever you see must, you tell anybody something they must do something, you want to ask. So that's typically suggestive of a conclusion. So when I look here, and it actually turns out this is the conclusion, because it's saying there must be an objective truth concerning morality, right? Why? Well, statement 2 says if there's no objective truth, then Hitler's genocide of Jews wasn't right or wrong. And then what else do we know? Is that we know in our hearts that it was plainly wrong. So this is definitely an argument. And just for fun, if I were to, since we're kind of pulling all this together, and you just finished mapping, if I were to map this, right, I would definitely put the premise or the conclusion at the bottom, okay? And then I'd also have premise 2, and I have premise 3. But also what we recognize too is that statement number 1 really, right, makes sense in relationship to statement 3. So what that means, so if I were to map it, I would definitely put the premises as dependent. So let's keep going. Let's look at the next problem. I'm going to go ahead and delete that just so we're not, let's just duplicate that page. All right, so then here, let's go to number 1. Okay, number 1, I have one statement here. Notice it's an if-then. And remember, if-thens in logic, if something, right, then something. This only counts as one statement. So knowing that, it cannot be an argument. Therefore, and what do I know? I notice that it is just a conditional statement. So the answer here is number 1. Okay? Boom, let's move over. Let's keep going. Let's try this one up here, right? This one has, again, I would go 1, right, here's statement 2, and here's statement 3. So what I know here, there's 3 statements. Now here I would look for any indicator words. I don't see any. I don't see any that's even suggested. And so here, this is talking about a belief, which is so Orthodox Jews forbids and Roman Catholics permits. So I don't see any one of those statements actually trying to prove another one true. If I were to put therefore in front of any of these statements, there's no other statement that would make sense that is proving it true. So therefore, it's definitely not an argument. And really what I have is just a bunch of facts. And I don't even know what I guess in this case it's talking about religion, right? Orthodox Jews, and Roman Catholicism. But there's nothing here that suggests that. So here I'm just a bunch of facts, right? So if I go back here, what it looks like is, it just looks like there's no particular claim is supported by evidence. So here I would put number 4. And remember that there's other types, and I don't really see much. I don't see a report. It doesn't say according to anybody. So I would just say number 4. Let's go to, right? But what I like about this next one, right? When I look at this next one, number 1, there's statement 2. Okay, there's statement 3. Whoops, wait. There's 3 there. And, here's for. What I know first and foremost is there's therefore. So now I have three statements about religion, and then I have a therefore. And therefore I want to say there's no objective moral truth concerning the moral permissibility of raising the dead. Now that's interesting. So what you have here, three religions, right? Actually, no, this is a little different. It's an if-then. If different religions or cultures hold different moral views concerning moral issues, then there's no objective moral truth concerning, right, X, which is moral views. Or moral issue X, whatever that is. So, Orthodox Judaism forbids cremation, Roman Catholicism permits cremation, therefore there's no objective moral truth concerning the moral. So here's definitely, right, this would be the, and then the other would be premises. So, and then clearly I'd be done. And on the exam, all you would have to do is the conclusion. Okay? And so now, let's just keep going through this. Let's go ahead and do number 4, just for fun. It says here, right, people have the moral beliefs. Well, here, what I'm going to do, go ahead and look. Notice there's two. Since people, right, people would have different moral beliefs than they do. So I have one. Whoa, whoops, hang on. If I look at the number of statements, I'm looking at one statement, I'm looking at two statements, I'm looking at three statements, I'm looking at four statements, right? And I'm looking at 5. So I notice that there's 5 statements. So when I look at this, I have people have, right, the first thing I know is if I were to kind of look at this abstractly, which I tend to do when I look at arguments, notice that if I were to rewrite this, I have statement 1, because, statement 2, okay, period, and then I have therefore, okay, statement 3, but I'm saying statement 3, comma, oops. I have therefore statement 3, comma, since number 4, okay, period, and then I have more. Okay, so notice moreover is definitely something that it's not going to suggest a conclusion. Since is always a premise, and because is always a premise. Right here. So we know 3 is going to be, right, the conclusion, because the word effective moral truth. And then, of course, it gives the other statements. It's all directing towards this particular this thing. So notice here there are 5 statements, but there's only 3 premises. So what I would do is I'd add the 4th one, like over here, and then, of course, I'd bring this. And that's all you would have to do, okay, on the exam. And then let's go ahead and just kind of clear. Keep going. If then ready, so let's do an if then. Let's look at there's 2. There's 3. Number 3. So here, my guess is, right, my 3, this is going to be in because of hence, and it turns out that's the case. My preacher says that whatever God says is morally right. My preacher reports to me that God has proclaimed that homosexuality is not morally right. Hence, my preacher concludes that homosexuality is not morally right. Well, this one, according to, well, really, even though there's the word hence, notice what it is doing. In this case, what this person is doing then it's reporting an argument of somebody else. So since they're reporting an argument of somebody else, right? It's not an argument in this case. I'm not going to give you something like this, but to me, but this is kind of what it's saying here, is that when you're reporting somebody else's argument, you're not really making that argument, you're just sort of highlighting what somebody else says. So, and that's kind of what it's saying. So here it would do this, and I'd put number 2. Okay. Now let's go ahead and delete. Okay. Kind of move over here. Let's go ahead and look at something else. Let's look at number 9, right? 9 I have statement 1, and I have statement. So it says just because people have different behave differently doesn't mean that they actually hold different moral views. You must ask why they behave as they do before you can be certain of different moral opinions. I'm looking at this going, there's really not one of them. I can't, if I put just, and this is how I always tell, if I put the word therefore in front of like number 2, and I read number 1 and said therefore number 2, it doesn't really make sense. If I went to 2, then I put therefore in front of here, that doesn't make sense either. So what we know is it's not that, and there's no real rhyme or reason here. And when I look at the options, right? And really, this is just, again, this is no evidence really being reported. So, whoops, I think I put number 2. Well, no, yeah. So here, I'm just looking at number 4. That's kind of what I would do there. And then here on number 10, right, I have 2 statements, and I have a because, and it says all societies have a prohibition against unjustified homicide because there are some moral values that all cultures must have in order to survive. Now, what's interesting here is, whoops, I don't want to do that. Let's see if I can undo that. Okay. Notice that generally speaking, if you see something like this on because of 2, you think, okay, it's automatically an argument, right? And then therefore, so 1 must be the conclusion, and 2, right? Let's go ahead and just kind of make room here, right? And 2 would then be going to 1 because that's a premise. But notice what this is doing here. This is just saying all societies, right, have a prohibition against unjustified homicide. Well, in some ways, that's just a fact, right? So if that's just a fact, and remember with explanations, here all we're doing here is we're not actually arguing, we're actually just explaining, right? And so what I noticed at this point is, come on, let's just get big. There we go. So what you notice is this is really just an explanation. And as an explanation, we would realize that this is, I think that's number 2, right? So that's what I would do there. Okay, so, and keep going. I mean, that's really, those are the big ones too. Here's number 13. If we look at right here, and let's do this, right? I have statement 1. Okay, and notice it says in addition, so that's most likely going to be a premise. Should, right, additions, then it should pay for prevention of refill. And then, of course, we have hence. All right. And so here, this is what's interesting. Again, it's a funny thing, is Professor Fingerette was a professor at UCSB, and I did go there for my undergrad, and it's pretty funny. So anyway, let's just take that out. But if you have here, really, you have insurance shouldn't pay for rehab programs for alcoholics. Why is that? Okay, well, it's really because of 1 and 2. Okay, so if I were to actually look at this, if I accepted both of those, it actually makes sense that number 3 follows. Okay, yes, perfect. So let's move on. So in here, it's actually an argument. So here, I would just bring this down here. Okay. And finally, if I look here, notice this one is just saying I have faith, I have faith, I have faith. Those are just statements. It's definitely not an argument, right? And therefore, it's a non-argument. So that's kind of like what's happening with insert A. So let me go ahead and stop this, and you can, hopefully that helps you. And I also kind of mapped out a little bit on how to diagram, okay, these particular ones as well. So hopefully that serves as a little review. All right, so on that note, let me go to the next video.